Hey guys, it's Jughead, just a down-to-earth guy trying to bring you some down-to-earth content here with another gaming video. While I was turning everything on in my setup today to relax and maybe record some gameplay footage, I immediately noticed that the settings on my main gaming monitor I played on got all messed up somehow, and while getting my settings back exactly how I like them, it made me think that it would possibly be a good topic to record a video on. All of my gaming uploads thus far have been solely Black Ops 4 simply because it's Call of Duty and it's the multiplayer game I enjoy and play most, especially currently as there just aren't many games out there that I'm playing right now that I think would be good for recording and talking about, but I do play a lot of games in general. And across all those games, one of the most crucial things for me to enjoy those games is having ideal monitor settings so the picture looks exactly how I want, whether it be multiplayer FPS games or single player story games. More and more gamers are ditching playing on TV, and rightfully so, and I think a lot of those same people keep wondering if they're playing on the best monitor settings possible. I myself play on BenQ monitors. BenQ and Asus are probably the most popular monitors for console gaming, so odds are if you have a monitor, you have the same monitor as I and are looking for ideal settings to play with. So obviously this video will be covering BenQ monitors only as that's what I personally own, so it's the only thing I know. I don't know how similar or how different other brands are, so maybe this video will still help those out with other brand monitors. I actually own two different models of BenQ. Both are 1 millisecond response time gaming monitors specifically for esports. One is a 24-inch and the other is a 27-inch. The 24-inch is the RL2455S, which I rarely ever play on. I primarily use it as a dual monitor setup for my iMac. The 27-inch is the RL2755HM, which is the one I play on 99% of the time. However, both monitors have the exact same settings pretty much, so whichever one you may have, the settings are going to be the same, apart from any options the 24-inch doesn't have compared to the 27-inch, since the 27-inch is the upgraded version of the 24, it's like the more luxurious one. On these BenQ monitors, you are actually able to save 3 settings as presets that you can toggle between at any time, which is a very, very convenient and useful feature to have. Because of this, I actually have 3 different sets of settings I'm going to share with you, each one tweaked for a different need. The first preset is what I use for pretty much all multiplayer games like Call of Duty, Battlefield, Destiny, etc. For multiplayer FPS games, I want my screen to be very neutral throughout, if that's the best way of putting it. What I mean by this is not having colors be oversaturated, not having white tones so bright and black tones so dark, an average amount of sharpness, decent amount of brightness. The settings are meant to reduce strain on the eyes and color distractions and anything that would make it more difficult to immediately spot an enemy anywhere on the screen and get in a gunfight. Use the buttons on the monitor to go to Menu, then Picture. Here are the settings that you should put in. Brightness I have at 70, I think is a perfect level of brightness, especially because I like to keep brightness levels in the actual in-game settings a little high, so it balances out perfectly for me. Contrast 50, it's right in the middle, so nothing is too overpowering. Like I said, I don't want whites too high, blacks too high. Sharpness 4, I think provides a perfect level of detail and clarity to edges and in color. Color vibrance 10, to keep things from being oversaturated. Black equalizer, I have set at 2. To me is the perfect amount, weakens the shadows on screen and reveals the dark areas of the map just nicely enough before the entire picture starts to be affected, so this way everything else still looks great on screen, but you can easily see an enemy in a dark corner or a shadow. Low blue light I have at 0 just because I don't want any, I don't mess with that. Color temperature I have as user, that's just standard. Hue I have at 50, again just keeping it balanced right down the middle. Instant mode I have set to on because I have an HDMI switch to this monitor, one HDMI coming directly from my console and the other coming from my Elgato and my iMac so I can record. But the stupid thing about Elgato is it needs to get power from my iMac to direct the signal to my monitor, so if my iMac isn't on, my Elgato doesn't receive any power, so my monitor doesn't detect any signal coming from HDMI 2. So I use my HDMI switch to go between HDMI 1 and 2, and with instant on mode, the monitor automatically detects which input it is receiving signal from and will change to that on by itself, which is really convenient. This way I don't have to go into the input on my monitor every time I want to change, it just does it by itself. And lastly, AMA I have set to high because that's also standard. Those are the most important basic settings, but just for the hell of it, exit out of picture and go down to picture advanced right beneath it and go for the more advanced picture settings. There's not many. Sensei demo I have set to off. I don't know what that is. I just have it off because it must be pointless if I don't know what it is. Hasn't affected anything. Dynamic contrast I have set to 0 simply because I just want my basic contrast settings from the regular picture settings to just remain constant. I don't want anything dynamically changing, so I have it at 0. So when you're done with all that, make sure you go back to the menu and make sure you go to Save Settings and choose Gamer 1 to save those settings as your first preset. If you don't do that, all your settings are just going to go back to what they were by default, and you're going to have to do it all over again. My second preset I switch to and use whenever I am playing a single-player story game or open-world game, pretty much any game that isn't an FPS multiplayer game. I have two different settings for gaming because the first preset compromised aesthetics and looks for efficiency and optimization. I sacrifice having nice vibrant colors and having things look pretty and full and dense and cinematic almost in exchange for the ability to clearly convey what is happening on the map and immediately pinpoint and target enemies no matter what. With this preset, I get to enjoy playing my favorite single-player open-world story games like Assassin's Creed, Red Dead Redemption 2, Far Cry, Fallout, Tomb Raider, Forza, whatever you can think of, any other story-driven game, looking as best as possible on my monitor. When I play these games, I'm relaxed and I'm chilling out, enjoying my time, playing out a movie. That's how I view video games. You're playing out a movie that you get to dictate the actions and outcomes to. So I want my single-player games to be more cinematic. I care about the immersion and the graphical fidelity. I want those vibrances to come out. I want things to look more realistic and beautiful. I don't need or want dark areas and shadows to be non-existent, for example, like I do in my other preset. So that's why I have two different presets, because between multiplayer games and story games, you'd otherwise have to choose which one you want to experience worse. These are my settings for single-player story games, just slight tweaks here and there that I think make a noticeable difference when you go in between the two. Brightness I reduce down to 60, contrast I increase to 55, black equalizer I set to 0, color vibrance I increase to 11, everything else I keep the same. Seemingly minimal at first, but if you make these changes, and by reducing the brightness down to 60, the saturation and color is a little deeper, more cinematic and more relaxing on the eyes, which is especially nice if you're going to play a story and roam around for hours, much longer than you most likely would do playing online. Contrast, I boost ever so slightly, just by 5, just again to make it a little more vibrant and cinematic, since, like I said, contrast actually brings in more color to the screen. Clarity takes away color, which is why I don't do anything to sharpness. Black equalizer at 0 makes it so no adjustments to black levels and shadows or dark areas are made, so it's exactly how it would appear just naturally. Color vibrance I boost just 1, which may seem trivial, but I myself see the difference between going from 10 to 11. Just go to your main menu on your console like I did, Xbox for me, and look at the thumbnail icons for games, especially the ones with like bright reds, oranges, and yellows, like Red Dead Redemption 2 for example, and tweak the color vibrance from 10 to 11 to 12, and you'll see the difference in those reds and those oranges and those yellows as they get just more vibrant and bright. Now, lastly, for the third preset, this is more of a bonus preset for you guys. It doesn't have anything to do with gaming, but you may find this one just as useful. All our consoles come with other apps like Netflix, HBO, Hulu, YouTube, etc. If you're like me and watch movies and shows through your console sometimes or all the time, having a dedicated preset created specifically with movie and TV show watching in mind is just something nice to have, so you know you're watching whatever it is you're watching as aesthetically pleasing as possible. You have 3 preset options anyway, so why not use it so you don't have to watch the latest episode of Game of Thrones when it comes out, or the latest movie on Netflix in the same settings that you had designed for multiplayer gaming. So here are my bonus settings for when you want to chill and watch some Netflix or something. Brightness I boost all the way to 80, contrast I increase to 60, sharpness I boost to 6, color vibrance I boost to 12, and black equalizer I set to 0. Everything else is the same. I boost the brightness to 80 because I like a nice bright screen that clearly shows everything on screen for me to see in good color and saturation, especially in these certain monitors where at certain viewing angles, seeing the colors can get kind of thrown off, and if you're not in a perfect viewing angle, it can kind of look bad, so boosting that brightness kind of mitigates that a bit. I boost the contrast too to again bring some more saturation in. I don't want dull colors and muted tones when I'm watching a movie or a show. I boost sharpness just a tad because it doesn't hurt in a more cinematic setting. Color vibrance I boost to 12 because I want colors to pop more. And I keep black equalizer at 0 so no shadows or dark areas are adjusted in any way on the screen itself. If there's a blue sky, I want the sky to look nice and blue. I want grass to be a dense green, blood to be a thick red. If there's a snowy mountain, I want the snow to be clear and white. If it's nighttime, I want shadows and dark areas to be dark. Exactly how the filmmakers, the editors, how they all wanted it to be, and not my screen altering the way the show or the movie is going to look. All these tweaks are meant to provide a more cinematic viewing experience and bring more life into the picture when you're trying to enjoy a movie or a show, as opposed to just trying to play some Call of Duty and the last thing you want is a cinematic experience and you care about just being able to easily pick off enemy movement across your screen. So I hope these settings help any or all of you who are or have been looking for good settings for your gaming monitor you maybe just got or have had for a while but haven't gotten quite right yet. If you think some of my settings could be better, let me know. These are of course subjective to my preferences when gaming, so you can think completely opposite of me. You have a great gaming monitor and therefore have a huge advantage over those casually playing on a TV, so having the right settings too will bring you just up to the next level even more so. That's it for this video. If you found it informative and or entertaining, leaving a like to let me know is awesome, and better yet, if you would like to see and keep up with all future content from me, be sure to subscribe to stay in the loop. Lastly, keep the conversation going down in the comment section below so I can connect with my audience more. With that said, so long, farewell, until next time, have a good one.